Captain Elias Jensen gripped the control panel in front of him, staring out at the planet Valar through the Pioneer's viewport. The swirling storm outside battered the ship with relentless force, lightning arcing across the darkened sky like the angry breath of a forgotten god. The crew had been through hell just to get here, and now the real challenge began. The mission was simple enough: retrieve the rare energy element, a discovery that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But nothing was ever simple when it came to the Vorlon. Status report, Elias barked, his voice calm but firm, betraying no sign of the anxiety gnawing at him. Lieutenant Nara Vallis glanced up from her console, her brow furrowed as she adjusted the ship's navigation system, making minor course corrections to avoid a massive bolt of lightning. "The planet's surface is unstable, Captain," she replied, her voice steady despite the strain in her eyes. "The storms are worsening, and I'm picking up seismic activity. It's not safe to land." Elias's jaw clenched. The Vorlon would be here soon, and they couldn't afford to waste any more time. "We don't have a choice. We need that element. Prepare for landing." Nara hesitated, fingers hovering over the controls, but she nodded. "Aye, sir." Setting course for the extraction point. The tension in the air thickened as the Pioneer descended through the violent storm, every inch of the ship's hull groaning under the pressure of the atmosphere. Elias felt the familiar weight of leadership pressing on him, the eyes of his crew resting on his every decision. The Vorlon, with their ruthless reputation and advanced technology, were already in orbit, waiting for any sign of weakness. If they found out humanity was after the energy source, there would be no going back. As the ship shook violently from another bolt of lightning, Elias turned to Nara. "Are the rest of the crew ready?" She didn't need to ask which crew members he was referring to. "They're geared up and waiting in the cargo bay. Everyone's on edge. They know what's at stake." He nodded, his eyes scanning the starry expanse outside. He had spent his life trying to prove humanity's worth in the galaxy. But this mission, this could be their defining moment. A sharp beeping interrupted his thoughts. The ship lurched as it made contact with the rocky surface of Valar, a sharp jolt rattling through the crew's spines. Elias quickly keyed in the landing protocols, giving a silent prayer that their ship wouldn't be torn apart before they even got to the energy element. "Touchdown," Nara called out, her voice tinged with relief. Elias unstrapped himself from his seat and stood. "Let's move out." The cargo bay doors opened, revealing a landscape so alien that even the seasoned crew members flinched at the sight. The ground was jagged and unforgiving, and in the distance, the glowing storm clouds churned like an endless whirlpool of destruction. "Stay sharp," Elias ordered, his voice amplified over the comms. "This isn't just about the energy. It's about survival." The crew disembarked quickly, the heavy crunch of their boots against the rocky ground the only sound in the eerily quiet landscape. Nara, with her sharp instincts, led the way as Elias followed closely behind, scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. They couldn't afford to be complacent. "We're not alone," Nara muttered, lowering her weapon. Elias's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" She pointed toward the distance. "There. I'm picking up movement. Not human." Elias swore under his breath. The Vorlon scouts were already here. The crew quickly dropped to their knees behind a series of boulders. The storm raged around them, but Elias's focus remained sharp. "Move in, quietly." They crept through the jagged terrain, moving with a calculated precision that came from years of training. Elias led the way, the adrenaline keeping his movements smooth and deliberate. The tension was palpable as they neared the cave entrance where the energy element was rumored to be located. Suddenly, a shout echoed through the canyon. "Ambush!" The Vorlon scouts emerged from the shadows, their advanced weapons aimed directly at the humans. The first shots rang out, followed by a burst of blinding light as energy blasts cut through the air. Elias reacted instantly, drawing his blaster and firing at the nearest enemy soldier. The shots were precise, hitting their marks with deadly accuracy. The Vorlon soldiers scattered, returning fire with their high-tech weaponry. "Take cover!" Elias shouted as he dove behind a rock, narrowly avoiding a blast that scorched the air where he had been standing just seconds before. Nara, never one to hesitate, fired back with a controlled burst of energy. Her shots took down one of the Vorlon soldiers in a flash of light. The humans had the advantage of surprise, but the Vorlon's superior technology quickly turned the tide. "We need to move," Elias shouted, his heart pounding. "The energy element is inside the cave, and we don't have much time before they call for reinforcements." The crew advanced toward the cave, using the chaos to their advantage. But the closer they got, the more the storm seemed to press in on them, its intensity growing as if the planet itself was trying to drive them back. At the cave entrance, Elias halted, signaling for the team to fall back for a moment. They couldn't afford to rush in. "Nara, do you have a clear path?" She glanced at the cave entrance, her face grim. "There's a tunnel leading deeper in. It's the only way through." "Lead the way," Elias ordered, his voice steady despite the rising tension. Nara nodded and sprinted ahead, her team following closely behind. As they entered the darkness of the cave, Elias could feel the weight of their situation settling in. There was no turning back now. They had come too far, risked too much, and the Vorlon were relentless. The clock was ticking. The crew pressed forward into the unknown, but just as they passed the threshold of the cave, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Elias's eyes widened. The tremors were growing stronger by the second. "Move! Now!" he yelled, pushing his team forward as the cave began to shake violently. Rocks began to fall from the ceiling, crashing to the ground with deafening noise. But it was too late. The entrance behind them collapsed, sealing them inside. Elias cursed under his breath. They were trapped. His crew looked to him for answers, but Elias knew one thing. There was no way out except through. The energy source was still ahead, and no matter what it took, they were going to get it. He took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. "We keep moving. There's no turning back now." The cave's entrance had been sealed by the shifting rocks, the rumble of the collapse still echoing in their ears. Elias stood frozen for a moment, the weight of their situation pressing down on him like the very stone that had just closed off their escape route. There was no way back. The path ahead was their only hope. "Captain, what now?" Nara's voice cut through the heavy silence, her tone calm but edged with concern. Elias took a deep breath, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. The mission hadn't changed: retrieve the energy element. But now, with no way to retreat, the stakes had grown exponentially. "We move forward. We'll deal with the Vorlon later. Right now, we find what we came for." The crew exchanged wary glances, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of their helmets. The darkness of the cave was almost suffocating, but Elias had spent years preparing for moments like this. He trusted his team, but more importantly, he trusted his instincts. Nara led the way, her fingers brushing against the jagged walls of the cave. "We're getting deeper, Captain. The air's thicker here. It's like the planet's alive." Elias didn't respond immediately. He had been thinking the same thing. There was an odd, almost sentient quality to the place, as if the planet itself was aware of their intrusion. The tremors had only grown more intense as they moved deeper into the cave, and now the walls seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. The feeling of being watched pressed down on him from all sides, a sensation he couldn't shake. "Keep moving," Elias ordered, pushing the thought aside. "The energy element is close. We can't afford to waste time." The crew moved with renewed urgency, their footsteps echoing off the stone floor. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to hum with static. Something was out of place, something that set Elias's nerves on edge. He had no idea what it was, but his gut told him it wasn't the Vorlon they had to worry about. Suddenly, Nara stopped. "There's something ahead. A light." Elias stepped up beside her, squinting into the distance. Sure enough, there was a faint glow at the end of the tunnel. Not the harsh, artificial light from their gear, but something different, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Is that it?" Elias asked, his voice low. "It has to be," she replied, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and wariness. The crew continued forward, each step drawing them closer to the source of the mysterious glow. As they rounded a corner, The cavern opened into a vast chamber. In the center of the room was a crystalline formation, pulsating with a bright, almost blinding light. The energy element, more beautiful and terrifying than Elias had imagined. The crystal hovered in midair, surrounded by a faint, shimmering field of energy. It looked ancient, yet somehow modern, like it had been waiting for them. Elias approached slowly, his breath catching in his throat. "Is this safe?" asked Private James, his voice shaky. His eyes were fixed on the glowing crystal. Elias hesitated. "I don't know, but we didn't come this far to turn back now." Nara took a step forward, her gaze locked on the crystal. "It's alive. I can feel it." The hairs on the back of Elias's neck stood on end. There was something deeply unsettling about the way the crystal seemed to resonate with their presence. It was like it was aware of them, responding to their energy, their very thoughts. He had seen many strange things in his career, but this was different. This wasn't just an object, it was something more, something that transcended simple technology. He took another step forward, his fingers hovering just above the shimmering field. Suddenly, the ground trembled again. The force of the quake sent them all stumbling, but Elias managed to stay upright. "Captain," Nara shouted. "The crystal, it's reacting." Before he could respond, the crystal's light intensified, blinding them all. The air grew heavy, thick with energy, and Elias could feel it pulsing through him, vibrating against his skin. He could feel his body grow warm, as if the crystal were drawing something from him, feeding off of his energy. The hum of the cave grew louder, a deep, guttural sound that seemed to shake the very core of the planet. The walls trembled violently, and Elias's vision blurred as the crystal's glow overtook the chamber. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. He was frozen, transfixed by the power emanating from the crystal. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded. The hum of the cave died down to a soft buzz, leaving behind a profound silence. Elias staggered back, shaking his head. What the hell just happened? Nara's voice was breathless. "The crystal, it's connected to the planet." Somehow, Elias looked at the crystal again. It was no longer glowing as intensely, but it still pulsed faintly like the beat of a heart. He swallowed hard. This isn't just a power source. It's something more. Private James's voice trembled as he spoke. "What do you mean, sir?" "I mean it's alive, and we may have just awakened something we don't understand." As Elias spoke, a rumble echoed through the chamber, louder this time, almost deafening. The walls seemed to crack, and the temperature in the room spiked. The planet was reacting. It wasn't just a dormant artifact, it was an entity, and they had disturbed it. Suddenly, a voice boomed through the cavern, deep and resonant, vibrating through the floor. "You are not welcome here, humans." The words felt like they were etched directly into Elias's mind, a cold presence wrapping around him, suffocating him with a chill that made his blood run cold. He wasn't sure if it was the planet speaking or something else, but the message was clear. "We need to get out now," Elias shouted, pulling the crew back toward the tunnel. His mind raced as he processed what had just happened. They had come for the energy element, but now it seemed the planet itself was aware of them, and it wasn't pleased. As the crew sprinted back through the tunnel, the ground continued to shake, the walls cracking under the pressure. The path they had come from was no longer an option. The cave was collapsing in on itself, and the planet seemed determined to keep them trapped. Elias's heart raced as he pushed forward. The crystal might have been the key to the galaxy's power, but it was also a threat, one that no one had anticipated. And now, they were trapped inside the belly of a living planet that wasn't going to let them leave easily. The only option left was to fight. The tremors had not stopped. In fact, they had grown more violent as the crew scrambled through the narrowing passages of the cave. The walls were cracking, rocks falling in a constant rain around them. Elias could feel the pressure building in the air, a force pushing against them, urging them forward like an unseen hand. He could hear Nara's voice over the comms, breathless but steady. "Captain, we need to find an exit now. We're running out of time." Elias didn't need to be told. The planet was no longer indifferent. It was angry, and it was closing in on them. The voice that had boomed through the cave was still fresh in his mind, the words reverberating like an echo in his skull. "You are not welcome here, humans. Keep moving," Elias ordered, his voice sharp. They couldn't afford to stop, not for a second. The path ahead was their only hope. The cave was shifting around them, alive and unpredictable, and the only thing Elias knew, for sure, was that their best chance was to reach the surface. The team pressed forward, the weight of their gear heavy on their backs, as they climbed over jagged rocks and twisted formations. The light from their helmets flickered in the dark, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts on the walls. "How much further?" Private James asked, his voice strained. His face was smeared with dirt, and his eyes were wide with panic. They had all felt it, an unnatural presence, as though the very cave was watching them, aware of their every move. "We're close," Elias said, but even as the words left his mouth, he wasn't sure he believed them. The way the cave shifted and rumbled, it felt like they were being funneled into a trap. The sense of dread that had been gnawing at him ever since they found the crystal had only grown. The closer they got to the surface, the more Elias felt like they were walking into the mouth of a beast. "Captain," Nara called out from the front, her voice tight with urgency. "There's something ahead." Elias's pulse quickened. "What is it?" "I don't know yet, but it's big. Too big to be natural." Elias followed her gaze, and his heart skipped a beat. Ahead, in the dim light, was a massive structure, towering above them. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a jagged spire that seemed to grow directly out of the rock itself. At first glance, it appeared to be stone, but on closer inspection, it was clear that it was not. It was something far more complex, a fusion of rock and energy, pulsing with the same eerie glow they had seen around the crystal. "This wasn't part of the plan," Elias muttered under his breath. Nara turned to him. "You think this is the source?" "It has to be," Elias said. His mind raced. The planet wasn't just alive, it was a vast, sentient system, and whatever they had awakened, it was now responding in full force. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the cave, followed by a terrifying screech that vibrated the very air around them. The ground shook violently, and Elias felt his knees buckle beneath him. "Get to cover!" he shouted, but there was nowhere to hide. The cave was collapsing, the walls disintegrating around them as the planet's wrath unleashed in full force. The spire in front of them began to crack open, revealing a swirling vortex of energy within. It was as though the planet was trying to consume them whole, to absorb their presence, to punish them for their intrusion. Elias didn't have time to think. He grabbed Nara's arm, pulling her toward the vortex. "We don't have a choice. We have to go in." "Are you insane?" she gasped. "That thing, it's the only way." Elias cut her off. "We need to shut this down before it destroys everything." With no time to waste, Elias pushed forward, dragging Nara along. The rest of the team followed close behind, the sound of their footsteps drowned out by the crashing chaos around them. The vortex beckoned, its pull growing stronger with every passing second. As they reached the base of the spire, the vortex erupted in a burst of light. The shockwave hit them like a freight train, throwing them off their feet and slamming them into the ground. Elias struggled to stand, his head spinning from the force of the blast. The air was thick with energy, buzzing against his skin, pressing in on him from every direction. "Captain," Nara cried, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. She was struggling to rise, but the force of the vortex was too strong. Elias pushed himself to his feet, his vision swimming. He could see the team scattered, some of them still on the ground, others stumbling as they tried to regain their footing. The vortex was pulling at them, its force increasing with each passing moment. "We have to get inside," Elias yelled. "Now!" But as they made their way toward the vortex, something shifted. The energy around them suddenly coalesced, taking form, a figure materializing from the light. It was humanoid in shape, but its edges were blurred, shifting and writhing as though it were made of the very energy the planet had unleashed. It spoke, its voice a low, resonant hum that vibrated through Elias's chest. "You dare to enter my domain?" Elias's blood ran cold. He had expected the planet to be hostile, but this was something else entirely. The figure in front of him wasn't just a manifestation of the planet. It was the planet itself. It was the heart of Valar, the very being that had awakened when they disturbed the crystal. "I don't have time for your games," Elias shouted, his voice filled with defiance. "We need that energy element. We need it to stop the destruction." The figure regarded him for a moment, its form rippling like liquid light. "Asterisk, you seek power, but you do not understand it. You're children playing with fire. Asterisk." The air seemed to grow colder, and Elias felt his resolve falter for a moment. But then Nara's voice broke through the tension. "Captain, we have no choice. If we don't stop it, we're all dead." Elias nodded, his heart pounding. They had come too far to back down now. "You want to destroy us?" Elias shouted, stepping forward. "Then try." The figure's form wavered, its energy crackling around it. For a moment, it seemed to hesitate, as if weighing Elias's challenge. Then, with a sudden burst of force, it lunged at him. The battle for survival had begun. The figure loomed before them, an ethereal being that was neither fully solid nor entirely vapor. Its form rippled and shimmered like molten light, its presence commanding the very air around it. The cave around them had fallen silent, as though the planet itself was holding its breath. Elias felt the weight of its gaze, cold and ancient, and for a fleeting moment, he questioned the wisdom of challenging it. "You're not real," Elias said, his voice low but steady. He tried to steady his breath, to quell the rising tide of fear in his chest. "You're just energy." The figure's shimmering tendrils curled in on themselves, growing more solid with every word. Asterisk, "I am the essence of Valar. I am its will and its consciousness. I have watched over this world for eons. And you, humans, dare to tamper with it." Asterisk. Nara stepped forward, her hand on the weapon at her side. She was trembling, but there was fire in her eyes. "We didn't come here to destroy you. We didn't ask for this. We're only trying to survive." The figure's form shifted in response, its energy flashing like lightning. "Asterisk, survival is not your birthright. You are invaders. You think you can conquer this world, but you are insignificant in the face of its true power." Asterisk. The words hit Elias like a physical blow. Despite the grandeur of their intentions, the humanity they had brought to Valar seemed small and fragile in comparison to the vastness of the planet's consciousness. "We don't need to conquer anything," Elias said, taking a step forward. His feet felt heavy, the ground beneath him pulsating with an unnatural rhythm. "We just want to stop this. You've been disrupting the balance, causing earthquakes, storms, death." The figure rippled again, its form becoming more violent, more erratic. Asterisk, balance? You speak of balance? This world is not yours to balance. It is mine to protect, to control. You have disturbed the core of Valar. It was never meant for you to unlock. Asterisk. "We didn't know," Nara interjected, her voice tinged with desperation. "We didn't understand what we were dealing with. But now we do, and we're not leaving without fixing this. You've killed my men, and you're killing us. There has to be another way." The figure seemed to pause, its pulsations slowing as it considered her words. For a brief moment, it felt as though time had frozen. The chaotic energy of the cave, the vibrations, the tremors, all of it ceased. The stillness was deafening. Elias didn't dare take his eyes off the figure. The tension between them hung thick in the air, a palpable force. He knew that any misstep could mean the end of them all. "You speak as though you have a choice," the figure finally said, its voice softening, but still filled with ancient power. Asterisk, but you're mistaken. Your survival is an illusion. The fate of your kind was sealed the moment you arrived. And now, you will bear witness to the consequences of your trespass. Asterisk. Elias's heart raced. The figure's words were not a threat. They were a statement of undeniable fact. For all their technological advancements, For all their might, they were nothing in the face of this world's consciousness. The weight of their mortality pressed on Elias like a vice, and it took all his will to keep standing. "We're not asking for a free pass," Elias said, his voice steadier than he felt. "We know we made a mistake. But if you destroy us, you destroy yourself as well. The crystal you're protecting, the power it holds, it's tied to your planet. You can't exist without it. You're not the only one with power here." The figure flared, its energy intensifying. Elias could see the edges of its form twisting in a wild dance, the very air around them crackling with static. Do not pretend to understand. You are insignificant. You cannot wield power like this. Not as you are. You have no place here, no right to command the forces that shape this world. But we have the will to survive, Nara shouted, her voice breaking through the tension. And that's something you can't take from us. We're not asking for permission. We're taking what we need to survive, to stop you, to make things right. The figure hesitated again, its energy pulsating in a slow rhythm. For a moment, Elias thought it might relent, might see the truth in their words. But then, with a final surge of power, the figure lunged forward, its form becoming a blur of light. Elias didn't wait. He grabbed Nara's arm and yanked her back as the figure's energy washed over them like a wave, its intensity too great to block. They were thrown backward, crashing into the jagged rocks behind them. The force was overwhelming, but Elias managed to push through the pain, scrambling to his feet. The world around him seemed to warp, and his mind was buzzing with the raw energy of the planet's wrath. The others were not far behind, struggling to rise and regroup. Elias could see the terror in their eyes, the realization settling in that they were no longer in control of their fate. The cave was alive with energy, the walls vibrating with an intensity that felt like it could tear the entire structure apart. "Captain," James gasped, clutching his chest as he staggered toward Elias. "What are we going to do?" Elias wiped the blood from his mouth and steadied himself. The figure was gone, but its presence still hung in the air like a storm about to break. He turned to Nara, his mind working fast. "We need to get to the core. The only way to stop this is to destroy the heart of the planet. We have to cut off the power source. That's the crystal, isn't it?" Nara nodded, her expression grim. "But how do we even get close to it? It's locked behind that energy wall." Elias's eyes narrowed. "I think we can use the crystal. If we can disrupt its flow, we could destabilize the planet's core. It'll stop the chaos. But the figure, I don't think it's just protecting the crystal anymore. It's desperate. It knows we can hurt it." Elias's words hung in the air like a challenge. The figure had underestimated them, but it wouldn't do so again. The team had no choice now. They were in it to the end. The heart of Valar awaited, and it would either be their salvation or their doom. The silence in the cave was deafening, thick with the weight of their choices. Elias stared into the blackness ahead, his mind racing, trying to process their next move. The walls pulsed with a steady, rhythmic hum, a reminder that the heart of the planet was near, and the figure, whatever it was not far behind them. "We have to move," Nara whispered, her voice tense. She glanced around, making sure the others were ready. "We're not safe here." Elias nodded, his gaze still fixed on the flickering lights in the distance. "We're close. The core should be just beyond this next chamber." But if the figure was guarding it, his words trailed off. The danger was too real, too immediate. They didn't have time to second-guess themselves. The team, battered and bruised from their previous encounter, was slowly gathering their strength. Their faces were grim, but there was a quiet resolve in their eyes. They knew what had to be done. They moved forward cautiously, the cave's temperature rising with every step. The closer they got to the heart of Valar, the more oppressive the air became. A heat shimmered off the walls, and the ground beneath them vibrated like a living thing, responding to the pulse of the planet's energy. "We can't waste time," Elias muttered, his voice tight. "If we don't act now, we're not going to make it out alive." "We're running out of options," Nara replied, her hand still resting on the weapon at her side. "This is the only chance we've got." Ahead, the path widened, revealing a cavernous space, its ceiling lost in shadow. At its center, a massive crystal pulsed with an eerie light, its glow sending jagged reflections across the walls. The core of Valar, the source of the planet's power, was right in front of them. But it wasn't just a crystal, it was a living entity, and it was radiating energy unlike anything they had encountered. Elias's heart pounded in his chest as he took a step forward. "That's it," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The sheer power of the crystal sent a hum through his body, vibrating in his bones. He could feel its energy reaching out, testing, probing. It was alive in ways that no human technology could ever be. But just as they stepped into the clearing, a familiar presence washed over them. A cold shiver crept down Elias's spine as the figure materialized before them, its form now fully solid and more terrifying than ever. It towered over them, its tendrils swirling like a storm of dark energy. The figure's face was hidden, but Elias could feel its eyes on them, judging, condemning. "You have come to the heart of Valar." The figure's voice echoed through the cavern, deep and resonant. "Asterisk, you're foolish to think you can change anything. This planet does not belong to you. It was never meant for your kind. Asterisk." Nara's hand gripped her weapon tighter, but Elias held her back with a shake of his head. "We're not here to conquer. We're here to stop this, to stop you. If we don't destroy the crystal, your world is going to collapse. And with it, everything." The figure's tendrils twisted violently, the energy surrounding them growing more intense. "Asterisk, you dare to lecture me on my world's fate? You have no understanding of what you're dealing with. The crystal is the heart of Valar, but it is also the soul. You cannot destroy it without destroying everything. Asterisk." Elias stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "We don't want to destroy it. We just need to sever its connection, stop its power from causing all this destruction. You don't have to keep punishing us for our mistake." The figure's form flickered, its energy fluctuating with barely contained rage. "Asterisk, your kind is nothing but parasites, consuming what you do not understand, believing you have the right to take and control. Valar is not yours to play with. It is not your home. You are invaders, and you will pay for this. Asterisk." Nara's eyes flashed with defiance. "We don't need your permission. We just need to stop the destruction. And we will, one way or another." The figure's reaction was swift. With a sudden, violent lurch, it surged forward, its energy forming a massive barrier of light between them and the crystal. The very air seemed to crackle with the intensity of its force. Elias's pulse quickened. There was no room for hesitation now. "We're not leaving without it," he said, determination in his voice. He turned to his team. "Prepare yourselves. We're going through." The team didn't hesitate. They moved as one, their boots echoing in the cavern as they charged toward the barrier. Elias felt the weight of the figure's energy pressing down on them, but there was no turning back now. They had come too far. The first wave of energy slammed into them, knocking them off balance. Elias staggered but held his ground. He could feel the power trying to tear him apart, but he pushed forward, gritting his teeth against the pain. Nara was right behind him, her eyes fierce, her weapon aimed at the barrier. "We can't let it stop us," she shouted. "Focus on the crystal. We can't break through without weakening its hold." Elias nodded, his eyes locked on the pulsating core. He reached for the small device in his pocket, the one they had scavenged from their supplies, the only thing that might be able to disrupt the crystal's flow. The energy in the room seemed to pulse with anticipation as he activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. The figure's form swirled and writhed, its energy growing more chaotic. The team kept moving, advancing toward the crystal despite the overwhelming pressure. The device in Elias's hand began to hum, its frequency rising to match the rhythm of the heart of Valar. The tension in the room reached a breaking point. Then, with a sudden, deafening crack, the barrier around the crystal shattered. The figure howled in fury, its form flickering wildly as the energy surged outward, destabilizing. Elias seized the moment. With one final push, he and his team reached the heart of Valar. Nara raised her weapon, aiming directly at the crystal. But before she could fire, The figure screamed in agony, its form collapsing into a violent whirlwind of light and darkness. It wasn't over yet. The countdown had begun. The heart of Valar was alive, and it was responding to the threat they posed. The planet itself was awakening, and it was no longer interested in saving them.